everyone. Thanks for tuning in to this Inkhouse video blog. My name is Jess Betancourt. I'm a vice president and co-lead of the security practice here at Inkhouse. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by a highly respected security industry influencer and good friend, Ryan Naraine. For those of you who may not know, Ryan is the editor-at-large at Security Week and the host of the Security Conversations podcast series. He's built some pretty remarkable security engagement programs at brands like Intel, Bishop Fox, and Kaspersky, and also co-founded ThreatPost and the Global SaaS conferences. In honor of Cybersecurity Awareness Month this year, we're going to sit down with him to learn more about Security Week, trends he's watching, and also get some advice from him for the security PR pros in the space about what they should or should not be doing. So without further ado, let's get started. Thanks, Ryan, for joining.
Thank you, Jess. I don't know about the influencer part, and if anyone is being influenced by me, I get nervous, but thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. All right. So the first thing we all want to know, as you're the editor of Security Week, is what types of topics and pitches tend to get your team's attention the most nowadays?
It's a variety of things. So at Security Week, we cover the gamut. We cover from funding announcements to companies doing mergers and acquisitions, big purchasing. So we'll cover the business of cybersecurity in addition to the threat landscape stuff. So it depends. It depends on what day it is. If Okta buys a company, like we're all over that. We're like anything big in the M&A business of security space is always going to be interesting for us, but we're unique. Security Week covers, it's a little more general purpose for the enterprise security news versus say dark reading or some other publications that will just go, just cover the threat landscape. The thing that obviously gets our attention are the sexy cybersecurity APT type stories, the ones with sophisticated exploits, anything new and unique around malware propagation or malware infection vectors, anything new or fascinating there. And we actually keep a very, very close eye to what's new and what's not new. So being able to, like, as you can imagine, I get about 60 pitches a day from PR folks like you who have a story to tell and they want me to tell their story. But that pitch to stand out in the box obviously has to appeal to what we write about, appeal to what I like to write about, which can sometimes be a little different. But for the most part, we're looking for sexy stories to tell our audience. When I say sexy stories, I mean things that are going to educate our audience as a CISO enterprise buyer as well. So we want to educate them about where the threats are without and try to remove a lot of the hype and noise around it about what's relevant to you, why this is important. I like the Axios model. I don't know if you follow this smart brevity that Axios use, right? I have slowly started morph my writing away from like traditional stories into smart brevity in a different format that allows me to really educate my audience very, very quickly on what the threat is or what the story is, why it's relevant to them and what they can and can't do.
Yeah.
So if my thing is, if PR folks can understand that and understand this shift into educating buyers and educating the audience versus only wanting to promote my product or my executive, it becomes easier for me to engage and write a story. It becomes easier for us to engage and see, okay, this is something I can write about and navigate. And that's a long way of saying, like, all the topics capture our attention. It depends on how it's pitched to us. The how of the pitch becomes very, very important.
Nice. And I love that writing style. I know you mentioned like Axios, but I feel like brief, concise, especially when it comes to technical topics, definitely works best for just having it resonate with your audiences.
And I'll add another point here. Like, there are no new security stories, especially on the threat landscape side. There are no new stories. Everything, I can just change the date and change a few names here and there, and it's the same story I'm writing. Company got infected. They screwed up the communications. So many people are affected. It's the same story all the time. There's nothing much is changing beyond, like, I wrote a story about the O-Day Google Chrome 0-day attack in the wild. Google acknowledged it was in the wild and so on. And I realized, like, as I was writing it, that I've written this 5 times already. The exact words, like, there's how many ways are you going to tell the same story? And cybersecurity is becoming like that because it's been 15 to 20 years of the same things, right?
Yeah, you'd think we'd learn by now, but it keeps happening. So, and it will continue to as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think perfect segue into kind kind of reflecting, looking back. I think when I look back on this year in the security industry, obviously a lot of M&A deals, which catch your team's attention, industry consolidation. There's always the cyber criminals wreaking havoc on organizations worldwide. What sticks out to you most when looking at this past year or 2022 and kind of looking back at what stands out in the industry?
The fact that we have not gotten a grip on ransomware epidemic is something that really surprises me. I thought that by September 2022, what are we? That's where we are, right? I can't keep up anymore because everything flies so fast. But I thought by September this year, we would have had ransomware attacks subsiding. We would have had companies beefing up responses. We would have had like a government law enforcement level of pushback and blowback that would have kind of slowed this ransomware thing down. I'm very surprised that we're still here and every organization is being compromised. I mean, if I see a new victim of a ransomware attack in the news tomorrow, like none of that surprises me. It doesn't matter who it is. It starts at the most well-resourced security security program through small businesses. That's a problem that hasn't gone away, and that's a little surprising to me. And the other thing that really has emerged as a big trend this year is the willingness of big tech and big vendors to out and expose these hacker for hire private sector companies, companies that make exploits to spy on phones, companies that sell exploits to like certain governments in certain weird parts of the world to spy on like politicians there and activists and so on. There's been a big push led by folks like Microsoft, Google, Facebook to sue NSO Group and all that kind of thing. We're starting to see real energy around exposing that. And that was something that surprises me because I feel like there's some legal implications about how you talk about that. And the fact that it's being led by big tech and some of these bigger companies to do these exposés is really fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And then I'm always interested in like newer things. The one that pops up for me and really keeps my the thing I'm tracking every day and looking and making sure I'm not missing a story on is malware attacks below the operating system. So above the operating system, Windows and like in inboxes and phishing and ransomware and all that stuff, like that's where a lot of the reporting over the years have gone. Mm-hmm. No one is writing about what's happening below the operating system and firmware and a chip layer, at hardware layer. And I believe just based on my experience at the Kaspersky and managing and tracking APT attacks over the years, we know that advanced adversaries are operating at this level. We know this. We just don't have the tools, the skills, the people, the ability to look for and find it. So anything in that place where big game attackers are already living there and winning the race there while we are still playing catch up. So anything around innovation in that area is what I'm starting to see popping up this year. But there's a lot of other things. I mean, there's nation state malware out of Iran and North Korea. We're starting to see a big volume of that. There's a variety of things this year that excites me. Supply chain issues. I expect we'll see a lot of more supply chain mega hacks like SolarWinds. And the other thing to remember, Jessica, is everything we read about or hear about or anything I'm mentioning here is history. This is what has already been found and done. So what I'm saying is, if we talk about SolarWinds and supply chain issues here, you have to assume that there's another one happening as we speak. The next SolarWinds is happening as we speak. They have already compromised it. We just haven't found it yet. So there's a big, this year as well is a slow realization that there's so many attacks happening as we speak that we just kind of oblivious to. If you look at just zero-day attacks, in the wild zero-day attacks for which there are no patches, there have been 30 of those found in 2022. This year alone, 30 of those in the wild things. When I started writing about security 15 years ago, or when we created ThreatPost 10 years ago, there were maybe 3 every year. This year, there are 30. Last year, I believe we had 82. So like this is trending in a direction where zero-day attacks are just like commonplace.
Yeah.
I didn't expect us to be here. So it's
and history repeats itself. So
100%.
Your point earlier, the stories you're writing, it's a lot of like, this sounds familiar. I've written about this before.
Same freaking story. The same story, I'm telling you.
And Ryan, I know throughout your career, you've worked with a lot of security communications teams in the trenches with them. And at this moment in time, heading into Q4, knee-deep planning for the new year 2023 comms planning. What's your advice for security PR pros as they're planning for the new year ahead with these trends that we talked about in mind? You know, what should they be doing more of? What should they be doing less of? Or what are you seeing in the industry from a PR perspective that sticks out to you?
Can I be blunt? I wish PR people would be less lazy. And that's why I asked if I could be blunt. A lot of my inbox is just filled with a lot of, hey, have you seen the Twitter Mudge report? I have an executive that can weigh in, and he's from XYZ company. It's like two things. Nobody cares about XYZ company. You have no credibility, or like you have no idea what's going on, but you jump into weigh in, and there's so much of that in my inbox, and I worry about, like, it feels like lowest common denominator, like lazy PR.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I say that specifically because what I've learned because I do a lot of CISO engagement as well, engaging with security leaders and guys who are managing security programs and helping them figure out which of these stories I should pay attention to and which is just hype I could easily ignore. And what I'm hearing from them is a lot of the stories that are being written for me, or a lot of the PR and press releases and marketing messages I'm hearing, is filled with acronyms and categories, and it feels like it's written for a non-sophisticated buyer. And the CISOs are saying, listen, I've been a practitioner for 10 years. I've been in the trenches using all these products for 10 years. Now I'm up here and I'm being inundated with this kind of like lazy messaging. And the big thing I would say to PR folks, and I mentioned this to friends of mine in the industry, just like, I've like you mentioned, I work closely with a lot of PR folks, is understand that the buyer and the absorber of your messages is a lot more sophisticated than he used to be. He used to be 3 years ago and where he is now. And like the bullshit meter is like a lot more active. And they, not only that, they're already congregating in private Slack channels, and they're sharing your stories, and they're naming and shaming the vendors who think they're stupid. And and a lot of that is driven by, again, lazy PR folks who just don't quite understand that the buyer has become a lot more sophisticated and you need a little bit of a better way to reach him. And things like, and I blame PR folks for this. I don't know if I can go on a little bit of a rant here.
Go on a rant, go for it.
But like all these fake awards, like best CEO and this product is the best. How can you be the best of breed product when you just launched in stealth mode with $3 million in seed funding and you have 3 employees? You bought an award and suddenly there's a press release and a Twitter feed and my LinkedIn feed is inundated with this big giant leader of a company that nobody's ever heard of. They barely got funding. It's just an idea. And it just muddies the water for everyone, right? And then the companies that are doing real innovation, or the people that are doing real solid PR, everyone gets lumped into the same train, and then your message gets lost. So my advice to PR people moving forward is like get above the fray. Embrace the idea that the people you're talking to are a lot more educated than you think they are. Like, we're not in this old, like, cybersecurity awareness month is a thing that shouldn't be. Like, why do we need a month to be aware about cybersecurity? Come on, guys. We should be aware about cybersecurity all year long. Like, this is just a marketing thing, right? It's like cancer awareness. Like, is there anyone in the world that isn't aware that we have a cancer epidemic? It's the same thing with cyber. It's like, and I sound like a curmudgeon. It's because I'm old school, right? I've been writing about this for 20 years. I've seen it all along the way, and I feel jaded and a little bit like, here we are, all these billions and billions of dollars spent on cybersecurity, and we have a ransomware epidemic. Nobody can click on a link securely. We still have to tell employees to watch for this. Like, why can't we click on things? Like, computing is 20 years old. Why can't we click on things and be safe, right?
Right.
And that's the questions that CISOs are answering for their programs, because for a CISO in a security program, his job is no longer to say, we are the department of no, you can't use that. The CISO's job is now to say, you can click on that because it needs to enable the business, right? The security as an enabler of the business is a real thing. And I think if PR people can kind of nudge themselves towards that trend where the buyer is more educated The CISO is no longer an old guy who came out of IT and doesn't quite understand security. I just did a fireside chat with the CISO for Fidelity Investments, a company managing all our 401ks. He's Adam Ely. He's not even 35 years old. Like, these guys came up through the trenches. They have run security programs and they know what they're talking about. Their meter goes off easily. Embrace that trend. Rise above the laziness and just, try to reach your audience where they are. That's my thing. And I want to warn you that they are there in their private groups sharing all this information, naming and shaming folks. So it's
Really
tricky.
Yeah, no, I think
Sorry for the rant, but I'm
helpful. I think in PR, we're always saying you need to understand your audiences, but that's not just a one-time exercise or activity. It's continuous because, to your point, they change and they evolve. And, one generation is out, the next generation is in. So you need to figure out what works best for them, not just in security, but any industry you're in. So
right.
Understanding your audience is pivotal to a good communications program, but just overall company success as well goes hand in hand.
Yeah, and I would just it's difficult because I understand the you have your KPIs. Security folks have their KPIs and they have certain targets and certain things, and it's easy to be lazy. Let me put it that way. And I'm being kind of rude to PR folks and I understand it's a tough job. You have a lot of demands from clients. Why am I not getting coverage? Well, dude, you don't really have a story to tell. We're trying here. Like, I know your world. And so I'm not trying to be too rude, but there's a certain reality check where there's a lot of poor quality public relations that muddies the water for everyone. So even if you guys are above the fray and so on, you get dragged into that world. And I feel like the really good, strong practitioners can help change the game, can start doing things the right way, can encourage your clients not to buy those fake awards, push back against the salespeople who want to buy it. That kind of thing would help collectively move our industry forward in a way. Those awards, they're a net negative. If they go away tomorrow, nobody would miss them, right? Let's be real.
Yeah. I think you bring up a lot of good points, especially for PR pros, and, challenge accepted. I think we do have a hand in helping to change the game. And I think a lot of times we don't realize that, but to your point, team effort, and that includes security PR pros, not just during Cybersecurity Awareness Month, year round. Awesome.
That's such a PR thing too. Can you help us get rid of that and we can have cybersecurity awareness for all 12 months, which is ideally where we need to be? Why does it need to be in October? And who's not aware of cybersecurity in 2022?
We're hearing a lot of feedback like that from journalists that, the cybersecurity media pitches keep coming up in September and October, and they're just fed up with it. But to your point,
nobody cares. Nobody cares. You know what the CISOs are saying in the Slack channel? In the Slack channel, the CISOs are saying, oh my gosh, October comes, here comes the blah, blah, blah around cybersecurity awareness month. They don't care. It feels like such wasted effort.
Yeah.
But again, it helps to check off a box and it helps to get people to deliver a certain thing. So I understand, but the curmudgeon in me, the old school kind of come on, guys, we can do better. Collectively, we can all do better.
That's right. Awesome. We'll leave October for Halloween then. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time
Absolutely
with us. We really enjoyed the conversation and the transparency. I think it's helpful for all of us as PR pros, but also the security industry at large too. So thank you so much for joining us.
And before I end, let me just say the PR folks play a very, very crucial role in our industry. I think the ability of good PR people to help a journalist kind of filter out what's a good story. And this comes back to the original point about good PR people who learn about creating relationships and understanding how do I fit myself into a journalist's kind of MO and his thing. It's the most important thing. And I spent a lot of time beating up on PR folks. There are a lot of really, really good PR folks who make my life easier, give me access to folks, give me access to information, help point me in certain directions. And that's what I feel like there are too few of you. And we can end it there. We need more of those good PR people who can help push things in the right direction and help shift it away from all the laziness and all the other things I always complain about. But that's me. I'm like an old school curmudgeon.
We love you for that.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank you. You heard it here first. Thanks, Ryan.
Bye-bye.